Hey everyone, it's Christine, the Mighty Murphin Fashion Ranger. Welcome to my channel. If you are new, I hope that you will subscribe before you leave. If you are a current subscriber, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be more of a mom type of video. I want to talk to you guys about my breastfeeding journey and talk about being, I guess, technically diagnosed with mammary hypoplasia, or it is also known as hypoplastic breasts. I haven't listened to any videos where anyone talked about hypoplastic breasts, so this will be possibly something that is new to you. I apologize if you hear Odie snoring down here. Odie's our dog, and he decided to come up here with me, and he's taking a nap and he's snoring. I don't think you can hear him, but if you can, that's what that is. Anyway, so I actually filmed this video once already, and I was very emotional in the video, and then I found out afterwards that I didn't have this sound, the microphone on, so there was no sound in the video, so it was just me talking with nothing coming out. Hopefully this one goes a little better, because I know the mic is on. But anyway, so let's start at the beginning. I had my son on Thursday, December 7th of 2017. And in the hospital, obviously they encourage breastfeeding, which is fine. I didn't really, I wanted to breastfeed. I know the benefits of breastfeeding. I have done a lot of research about it. I took a breastfeeding class, and I thought I was decently prepared for breastfeeding, and that was my plan. So I definitely had colostrum coming out, so the first few days he was totally fine. He was fed, he was sleeping as much as a newborn can at that point, and everything was going good. We were in the hospital, since I had a C-section, we were in the hospital from Thursday, and then we got discharged Sunday. It was like the afternoon-ish, and at that point he had lost some weight, but that's to be expected when they come out of you, because they're not getting their nutrients from you anymore. They're doing it on their own. So they do expect some of that. But they had us have an appointment for the next day after we got discharged. Sorry if this is a little all over the place, because even when I shot it the first time, I wasn't really clearly laying out the timeline. But while I was in the hospital, the first day I was there, even though I had colostrum coming out and everything, my baby was latching, sucking a few times, and then stopping. So they had a lactation consultant come in. She gave me a nipple shield, and that seemed to help. She told me she thought I had flat nipples. I don't really think I do. One of the nurses told me that he could just be too small, like his mouth could be a little bit small, so he just can't get the nipple far enough back in his mouth to keep the suction going. So the nipple shield did help, and I had been using that the whole time we were there. She did make a comment to me, which obviously I didn't know the significance until later, but she was like, "Oh yeah, I noticed that you have kind of a large space in between your breasts," but she said nothing else about it. Didn't say what that meant, didn't say why she was commenting on it, didn't say anything. So she had given me the nipple shield, and then that was Thursday. So then I think Sunday came around, and before I was getting discharged, the one nurse said to me, "Well, how long are you supposed to use the nipple shield?" And I was like, well, she didn't really say. She just said maybe in a few weeks you can try not using it and see if he'll latch, and maybe he will. And she was like, "Oh, well, I don't think that that's sufficient information for you." So she got another lactation consultant to come in, which we're on lactation consultant number 2 at this point. She mostly just threw information at me and told me, when you feel like maybe he'll be able to latch without it, try taking it away and see what happens. She wasn't very, she didn't even show me anything. She was just standing there talking to me. So we got discharged that Sunday. We had a doctor's appointment the next day, and at that point he had lost 10% of his body weight, which is the max that they really want them to lose before they start gaining their weight back. So my doctor didn't seem super concerned, but he was like, "We'll have you back on," I think it was Thursday. So this appointment was on Monday. He was going to see us on that Thursday just to check on his weight and make sure he started to gain it back again. And while I was there, they have a lactation consultant in their office. So we're on lactation consultant number 3. She was asking me if I saw milk like dripping out of the side of his mouth when he was done. I did. She asked me if, since I was using the nipple shield, if I saw milk in the nipple shield. I said yes. She asked if he was falling asleep while he was on me. Yes, he was. The only issue that we were having at that point was that, and again, this appointment is on Monday, Sunday night, which was our first night home from the hospital, he barely slept at all. Like, hardly at all. So that meant that we got no sleep. And everyone that I talked to, and even the lactation consultant, was like, oh yeah, he's probably just cluster feeding. He's super hungry because he's growing. And that's how he's gonna gain that weight back that he lost. So he just wants to feed all the time. Totally normal, don't worry about it. It'll probably last a couple of days and it'll be fine. So then that night, Monday night, he again barely slept. I think he might have gotten like a half hour of sleep, but other than that, every time we put him down, he would cry, act like he was hungry. I would feed him. We would spend a little time with him, like rock him and stuff, try to put him down again, whole cycle just over and over and over again. So at this point, we're both losing our minds because we had not slept. Thankfully, my mom was still here and she like let us get a couple hours while she watched the baby. But we were both very frustrated at that point. And I was having that moment of mother instinct, which of course no one trusts first time mother instinct because they're like, oh, you just don't know. But I was having this feeling that I really feel like something is wrong. Even though people are telling me, oh yeah, you know, if he doesn't sleep at all, that's totally normal. I had this feeling that there's something wrong, but I don't know what it is. So then Tuesday came around. He hadn't slept at all the night before. And I realized that he hasn't pooped in about a day and a half. And before that, he was pooping a little bit, a couple times a day. And I remember in my breastfeeding class, them telling us, if you're breastfeeding the baby and it's within the first few weeks of life and they haven't had a poop in 24 hours, to call your doctor just to be on the safe side, because it could be nothing. And maybe their system is just, you know, still getting used to processing everything. Or it could be a problem with your milk, or it could be something with their intestines, like a blockage, or their intestines could be twisted or something. So just mention it to your doctor to be on the safe side. So Tuesday morning, I sent our doctor an email and I said, hey, you know, we had another sleepless night last night and I realized he hasn't pooped in a day and a half. I'm concerned that something is going on. I don't know if the problem is me. I don't know if there's something intestinal going on, but I really feel like something is wrong. So his suggestion to me, which was like, try the easiest thing first, was to have me pump my milk instead of breastfeed him so we could get an idea of how much I'm getting out. And then we can see if that's, you know, on the lower side. If my supply hadn't come in yet, because I did have a C-section and they told me that's a possibility, that your milk can be delayed because your body didn't go into labor naturally, so it didn't know the baby was coming, so it didn't like prepare itself for the milk to be coming, and now it's just supposed to be expected to happen. So I pumped, and the first time I only got 10 milliliters, which if you know anything about like conversion milliliters to ounces, that's like not even half an ounce. So as the day went on and I was pumping, I was getting either like 10 milliliters or sometimes 5 milliliters, which is basically nothing. And I told my doctor that, and he said, I think that the problem is you. Well, not me, but the problem was with my supply. And he said, you know, maybe it hasn't come in yet, or maybe there's another issue. I'm going to refer you to another lactation consultant and see if she can kind of help you sort out the problem. But in the meantime, if you could supplement with formula, you should do that. And give him, like, if he wants up to 2 ounces, give him an additional like 2 ounces of formula. So that's what we started doing, and he was super hungry, I guess. because as soon as we started doing that, he started taking naps. He slept better that night, like everything was improving, and I was like, thank the Lord, I think we found the issue. So the next day, which was Wednesday, I went to the outpatient lactation consultant that he sent me to, which now we're on lactation consultant number 4. I saw 4 lactation consultants before we figured out the issue. But she did a weighted feed with him, which if you don't know what that is, they weigh them and then you breastfeed them, and then they weigh them again, and they can actually calculate how much milk they ingested during that feeding session. And he got about half an ounce of breast milk from me from feeding. So she said, obviously, for him growing, that's not enough for him, so continue to supplement with formula. She said she's not one of those people who thinks that formula feeding is bad. She said when there's like a medical need for it, which him losing that much weight and continuing to lose, and me not being able to produce enough milk at the time, that was a medical need, that he needed additional supplementation of formula in order to grow. So she told us to keep supplementing. She recommended foods that I should eat to help boost my supply, which were like oatmeal, almonds, flaxseed, brewer's yeast, all of that kind of stuff. So I tried that. That did not help me. I tried lactation cookies that I ordered, which there is a really good place to get lactation cookies. If you want the place that I got them from, I can link that below. They are actually semi-local to me, but I still had them like ship it to me because they're a good like 40-minute drive from my house. But they ship internationally. I think internationally, at least throughout the country, I know they do, but I think there is also an international shipping option. But I can link them because they are actually really good. And I'm sure if your issue is that those things would help you just to like boost your supply, I'm sure they would be great. But they did not help me. Eating the food she suggested did not help me. I ended up renting a hospital grade pump for a month. That did not help me. It was the Medela Symphony pump, and it might have helped a little, but not enough for me to notice like a big difference. I also tried power pumping, which is where you pump for 20 minutes, take a break for 10 minutes, pump another 10 minutes, take another break for 10 minutes, and then pump another 10 minutes. So it's over the course of like an hour, you're pumping like most of the time, and that's supposed to help you if you do it for like 3 days. It's supposed to jumpstart your supply and mimic like cluster feeding, so that you're like the whole supply and demand thing is supposed to help boost your supply. That did not help me. My lactation consultant told me to basically triple feed him, which was I would breastfeed him first, then feed him the pumped milk that I pumped, and then finish the feeding with the formula and then go pump. So that whole process of those 4 steps would take over an hour each. And when you're feeding a newborn, you're supposed to feed them every 2 to 3 hours. So if that's taking me over an hour and he's only waiting 2 hours between feedings, that means a vast majority of my day is just dedicated to feeding him, which is absolutely exhausting. And it didn't help. It's supposed to help boost your supply because besides feeding him, whatever he's getting out, you're also pumping after that. So that's supposed to, again, supply and demand, it's supposed to increase how much you're getting. And that also did not help. I did that for, I think it was like about a month. I did that consistently. And it was emotionally and mentally draining and so frustrating. And it was terrible. And there was actually, I'm in a group on Facebook that talks about this kind of stuff, and someone asked if that was helpful to anyone, and a majority of the people who commented were like, no. Like, you can try it, but it is exhausting and frustrating, and you'll give it up eventually. Like, I don't know how anyone consistently does that. But anyway, so I had tried all of those things. Nothing helped me. Oh, I also tried mother's milk tea. I don't think I was drinking enough of it for it to really do anything, but it didn't really taste that great and I just could not do it. The only thing that I found that did help me was fenugreek, which I know that that is a controversial supplement because some people, it actually completely decreases their supply and like dries it up and they don't have a good experience. But that has actually helped boost my supply a little bit. And I also take Blessed Thistle, which the two together have helped me a little bit. Now I get between like an ounce and between like 1 and 2 ounces in the morning. And then again, it kind of decreases throughout the day, which I've heard is normal. The lactation consultant told me that you actually have more water content in the morning and then it kind of like decreases throughout the day and your fat content gets higher. I guess that's true. It makes sense. I was keeping myself hydrated. I was drinking coconut water and regular water all throughout the day. Nothing I was doing was, even though the supplements I was taking did help, they weren't making me able to exclusively breastfeed. I was still, no matter what I did, I wasn't making enough for him. So after I saw her, I think 3 different times over the course of like the first 6 or 7 weeks of his life, I believe, she was like, you know, you've done all that you can do. I think it kind of is what it is at this point. And I had asked her, because I did some research on my own, I Googled the whole breast being a little bit separated. Remember I said the first lactation consultant I saw commented on it? Sorry, I needed a drink. My throat was really dry. But I had Googled having a gap between your breasts, and I found mammary hypoplasia, also known as hypoplastic breasts, which is also known as insufficient glandular tissue. And I asked her, do you think that this is what I have? Because, and I'm going to read this to you, some of the symptoms of this are narrow, widely spaced breasts, areolas that appear swollen or puffy, which I didn't think I had that until I noticed after I pump, I think it's the left one, there's a spot that looks a little bit puffy, but it's only been since I started pumping. It didn't look like that to begin with, so I'm not sure if I have that one. Asymmetrical breasts, which one is larger than the other, I don't really have that, like at least not a noticeable difference. And then breasts that do not grow or change in pregnancy and the milk never comes in around 3 days after giving birth. Which, that was one of the things that she asked me. She asked if, like in my first appointment, she asked if I had like PCOS, if I had any sort of surgeries, if my breast changed. She had a whole list of things that she asked me to try to determine like if they could figure out what was going on. Sorry, I have my drink in my hand. And really the only ones that I had answered yes to were that I had a C-section because that can delay your milk coming in, and that my breasts didn't change very much during pregnancy. I felt like they grew a little bit, but it wasn't enough to warrant like buying new bras or anything. Like they hadn't jumped up a cup size or anything. And apparently that is a sign of hypoplastic breasts. So I asked her if she thought this was a possibility, and she said, at this point, since you have tried pretty much everything that you can try, yes, I'm pretty sure that that's the issue and that nothing that you really do is gonna be able to help you, which is kind of hard to hear. And I was like, what do I do at this point? So her suggestion to me was to continue what I was doing. She said if I didn't want to pump after every time I feed him, don't kill yourself to do it, which I was like, thank God, because it was getting so old after a while, spending that much time during the day just dedicated to feeding. So since then, I feel like my morale has been a little bit better because I'm not spending that much time doing that. what I'm doing right now is, since I'm back at work, I'm breastfeeding him in the morning and giving him formula. Then when I'm at work, I'm pumping like twice. And then when I get home, I'm feeding him and then still pumping. And his last bottle of the day, I'll give him like the pumped milk and then finish with the formula. And then at night, I'm like getting up, breastfeeding him, and then finishing with formula. So I'm kind of combination breastfeeding and pumping, and then still supplementing with formula. And that seems to have been working for now. But anyway, after she had told me that she thinks this was my problem, I was having my follow-up appointment from my labor with my OB, and I told him about this, and when he did a breast exam, he was like, well, let me see like what I can kind of figure out just by feel. And he said that when someone's breastfeeding, you can kind of feel that like the whole breast will be like firm and dense, but mine, it's like a small strip of an area that feels that way. So he said, I'm pretty sure that that's what you have too, because there's definitely a difference between like a normal breastfeeding breast and yours. It's a lot less. So I would say the first, well, when I realized that basically my child was starving and it was because of me, and I didn't know that that was the problem, that was really hard. Because, like, being a first-time mom is hard and stressful enough, and then you realize, like, something that's supposed to come naturally, something that your body is supposed to be able to do, and yours just can't do it, is really hard to deal with. And this is actually a lot better than I was at the beginning, because I swear, when I realized what was going on that first day that I pumped and I was only getting like 10 milliliters, and I was talking to the doctor about what we should do, the one time that he called, I couldn't even talk to him on the phone because I was just bawling my eyes out, and I was just a wreck. And at least now I can talk about it, because for a while, like, I know my sister-in-law tried to talk to me about it the one time when it had only been like a couple days since we figured this out, and I was like, I can't talk about it. So it definitely gets better. You kind of, sorry, I haven't cried about it in a while. When I shot the video before and I didn't have sound, I cried too. So this is actually very cathartic, because I haven't cried about it in a while. But it's just, I think a lot of it is how much people tell you like breast is best and you should be breastfeeding, and people will like find out you had a baby and be like, oh, are you breastfeeding? And breastfeeding just in general is hard, getting like the latch down and feeding, you know, constantly basically, and all of that, like just learning how everything works and how you need to like hold your baby and all of that stuff. So it's hard for everyone to begin with. And then to find out that like the thing that is supposed to be best for your baby, you physically cannot provide for them. And of course, everyone wants the best thing for their child. Like that goes without saying. So knowing that your body can't do it is frustrating and upsetting. And it's hard to deal with. But then you realize, you know, if forcing my body to do it, which it doesn't want to do, is going to like starve my baby and make them lose weight and get really sick, that's obviously not worth it. and you should be using formula to supplement if you have to, and just them being fed and getting enough calories and enough nutrients to be able to grow, that's way more important than trying to, because like I said, I'm in that group on Facebook, and I've read posts of women who are like, I know I'm not getting enough, but I'm gonna do this. Well, if you legitimately have a medical issue where you can't produce enough and you're basically starving your baby just because you refuse to give them formula, that's a problem. And I know it's hard to get over, because obviously I've had to get over that thought and everything and deal with this. And it is kind of like a grieving period, but it'll always be, I think it'll always be kind of a sensitive subject with me, because I really did want to breastfeed. And I mean, I'm still breastfeeding, it's just not exclusively breastfeeding. And trying to explain that to someone who walks up to you and is like, hey, how's breastfeeding going, is hard, because I feel like a lot of times when people ask you stuff like that, they don't want necessarily like a heartfelt answer. They just want you to be like, oh, it's going great. Or I don't know what kind of answer they expect from you. But I said to someone the other day, they were like, how's breastfeeding going? And I was like, well, I don't have enough glandular tissue in my breast to produce enough to give my child fully breast milk. And they were like, I didn't think that mattered. Well, something that I want to clarify, because I didn't clarify it to this person, because I was just like, I kind of just moved on after that because I didn't know what to say. But I think they were confusing breast size with glandular tissue, which they're two different things. Glandular tissue is the actual like glands and ducts that produce the milk in your breasts, and breast size is a totally separate thing. That's just the size of your breasts, which could be fat, could be whatever. Sorry, I'm still trying to like gather myself. But I wanted to make this video because I want to raise awareness of insufficient glandular tissue, that it is a thing and it is something that's hard to deal with. And if you know someone who's struggling with it, just try to be as supportive as possible, because they're probably going to be met with a lot of insensitive people who just don't understand and are going to tell them, well, you didn't try hard enough, or, oh, maybe you should try this. I guarantee you, if the person has this problem that I have, they've probably tried it all. So any random suggestion that you give them is either not legitimate or they've probably already tried it. So just don't even bother. Just try to be as supportive and as compassionate as possible. And I wanted to share it because anyone who's having a hard time breastfeeding, just know that you will figure it out. It will get better. And if you do have to feed your child formula, it is not a bad thing, and it is not the end of the world. They will still grow, and they will be smart, and they will be just perfect children as they get older. Well, maybe not attitude-wise, but physically, they will be great either way. As long as your child is fed, that is the important thing. It doesn't matter how. So that is my breastfeeding journey, and I hope that you learned something from this video, even if it's just to be a little more compassionate towards moms, first-time moms, or even second-time moms, any moms that are having a hard time with anything, especially when it comes to breastfeeding, but because it is hard. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.